Agirl's Chronicles, Episode 16, The Bride of Shame. The echoes of Agirl's 18th birthday had not even faded when a new kind of silence fell upon the town, a silence heavy with whispers. The next thing the people heard was that Soji and his family were preparing to pay her bride price. It wasn't for love. It wasn't because his heart had found a home in her. No, it was to bury shame. To silence the gossip that had grown wings in the mouths of the villagers. Soji, the one Mama Put fed and trusted like a son, has gotten that small girl pregnant. Soji was not moved by affection, he was driven by fear, the fear of disgrace. He had built an image of a hardworking, responsible young man, and now he trembled under the weight of rumors. The market women gossiped as they peeled cassava, the hunters whispered by the fireside, even the palm wine tapper sang about it in jest. And so, Soji chose to act fast. He decided to marry a girl, not to honor her, but to hush the noise, to protect his head from the shame that now followed him like a shadow. And just like that, a girl was married off. Against her will. At barely 18, she became a wife and a mother-to-be, to a man who had stolen her childhood. They called her Ayawo Soji now, a title that sounded like mockery in her ears. She wore her wrapper high to hide her swollen belly, and each morning she would pass by her old school on her way to the stream or the farm. She would slow down, her eyes dimming as she saw her classmates through the classroom windows, heads bent over their books, voices chanting lessons she once knew. The chalkboard she used to face every morning now seemed like a dream from another life. Her classmates would point at her as she passed. Some would laugh. Others would whisper loud enough for her to hear. See her life now, the girl we thought was so smart, she's carrying Soji's baby. The words cut her like blades. She would hurry away, her feet sinking into the dust, her eyes full of tears, hiding behind the fold of her faded gown that could no longer conceal the shame she carried. A girl began to shrink, not in body, but in spirit. Her laughter, once soft and bright like morning dew, vanished. Her back bent not only from the weight of her belly but from the burden of rejection. Bolingo, her twin brother, became her only ray of light. He helped her as much as he could, fetching firewood, cooking her meals, and sometimes going to the farm so she could rest. He talked to her gently, like only a twin could, reminding her of better days. But Soji was a harsh man. He would leave her with endless chores, heaps of cassava to peel, clothes to wash, goats to feed, and food to cook, even as her belly grew heavy and her legs swelled. Bolingo's visits became her only comfort until he finished his exams and left for the city to live with their uncle. That day, as she waved goodbye, something inside her broke quietly. She watched him walk away, and the air suddenly felt empty. When he left, everything that reminded her of love went with him. In the weeks that followed, she tried to draw closer to Soji, hoping he might change, that maybe he would finally look at her as a wife, not as a burden. But Soji only grew colder. He began to bring other women home, one after another. Sometimes a tall one with high heels and painted nails, other times a short one with a rough laugh and long eyelashes. They all came, they all stayed, they all mocked. A girl would sit in a corner of the house, watching them eat from the plates she washed and sleep on the bed she spread. At night, Soji would share his bed with those women while a girl, pregnant and weary, would curl up on the cold floor or by the kitchen door. When rain fell, she would stay up, wrapping herself with old wrappers, praying that lightning would not strike the leaking roof above her. If she dared to complain, Soji would glare at her and hiss. "Don't forget, you're my wife. I paid your bride price. You belong to me." Those words stabbed deeper than knives. And so, a girl learned silence, painful, suffocating silence. She learned to swallow her pain and speak only to her unborn child in whispers at night. Weeks turned into months. Her body began to show the tall, thin arms, sunken cheeks, and tired eyes that had seen too much for a girl her age. Mama Put, her mother, could barely bring herself to visit. The pain of disappointment had hardened into anger. She told herself that agirl had brought this on herself, forgetting that her daughter was just a child thrown into a storm she didn't understand. Whenever agirl passed by Mama Put's restaurant, she would stop by the door, hoping her mother would look her way. But Mama Put would pretend to be busy, shouting orders, dishing food, avoiding her gaze. And agirl would walk away quietly, her eyes dim, her wrapper soaked with tears. Sometimes she walked home in the rain, her belly heavy, her heart heavier. At home, Soji and his women would be there, laughing, drinking palm wine, waiting for her to cook. And no matter how tired she was, she would fetch water, light the firewood, and make their meal. Her child kicked inside her, hungry, restless, but she had no strength left to eat. Her pregnancy was now past 8 months, though she didn't know it. She didn't know anything about counting pregnancy months, or when labor should come. All she knew was that her body ached and her dreams were fading. But somewhere in her broken heart, something new had begun to bloom: motherhood. She began to think beyond her pain, beyond Soji's cruelty. She began to think of the baby, her baby, and how to make sure it never suffered like her. One sunny afternoon, she went to Soji's farm to harvest cassava. She wanted to sell a few tubers to buy small things for the child she carried. The farm was quiet, the air thick with heat. As she pulled cassava from the red earth, she paused. A soft flutter in her belly made her gasp. The baby kicked. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. That evening, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, her hand on her belly, whispering, "My baby, you're strong. You'll live a better life than me." The next day, she went to the market. With the little money she made from selling cassava, she went to a roadside store, one of those places where fairly used baby clothes were piled on a mat. She picked carefully: a small shirt with faded prints, a tiny wrapper, a soft cap. Her eyes filled with tears, but her heart was full of hope for someone she hadn't met yet. People still mocked her as she walked through the market, but she no longer cared. Her shame had turned to strength. She was no longer living for herself, she was living for her baby. The following morning, agirl returned to the farm. The sun rose slowly, golden and merciless. She tied her wrapper tighter and began to pull another cassava stem. Then suddenly, a warm rush of liquid ran down her legs. She froze. For a moment, she thought she had urinated on herself. She looked down, the red soil was wet beneath her feet. Then came the pain, deep, sharp, unexpected. It tore through her lower belly like fire. Her hand gripped the cassava stem, her breath caught. "Oh! What is this?" Another wave came. She screamed, clutching her belly. Her knees buckled. She fell to the ground, her wrapper soaked, the earth beneath her spinning. The farm was. She held her breath, trying to crawl down to get help. But suddenly she slumped to her back and passed out, to be continued.